Hello and welcome to this special edition of the Gary Newbond Sports Show, the best bits on the Mail Online from some of our outstanding interviews. Coming up, we'll have George Groves and CARL FROCH on their big 2 world title fights, plus Ricky Hatton on the gamble that didn't quite come off at Las Vegas.
I worked hard and I deserved my shot to get to fight Floyd. I was unbeaten, 2-weight world champion. But I'll always be forever grateful for what my family's got and everything, from that I was born in the same era as Floyd Mayweather.
All the build up to the Groves rematch, all the training camp that was hard, I got through it, and my mindset was, this is the last time I do it. So when I landed that right on Groves' chin and got the win by knockout, honestly, I mean, I didn't announce it instantly, I didn't announce it at the post-fight press conference, but I kind of knew deep down that that was curtains on my career. That's the end for me. And what a way to bow out on the crest of that wave.
I felt like my career was actually going to begin at this point. You know, I win this and then every door's going to open for me. I'm going to be, you know, the biggest, the highest profile fighter in the UK at the time. You know, we had Anthony Joshua on the undercard. We had the heavyweight scene hadn't really taken off. It was tough. It was really, really tough to be from hero to zero, literally in the space of one punch.
CARL FROCH and George Groves to come, but we're going to begin with one of the most popular and successful boxers of his generation, Ricky Hatton. Tens of thousands of British fans used to flock to Las Vegas to watch his super fights, and they included, of course, in 1997, the Floyd Mayweather. Well, it was a fight that didn't quite come off for Ricky, but he came back a real hero in this country.
Your fabulous career, and it was a fabulous career, 48 fights, just 3 defeats, and they were in those 3 defeats came in the last 5 fights. There's so much to talk about in your career, but the one thing I'd like to ask you about is the Floyd Mayweather fight in 2007 in Las Vegas at the MGM. He said afterwards, you, even though he beat you in the 10th round, you were the toughest competitor he ever met. I mean, that is some compliment towards the end of your career.
Well, very much so. And I mean, when even, you know, you look at the people that Floyd fought after he fought me, you know, like the Canelos and the people like that, you know, it makes me feel so proud of the performance. And when you look at, you know, when people are talking about the best fighters of all time, you know, on websites or papers and stuff like that, it's like Floyd Mayweather is, in every one of them, is #1 of all time. Manny Pacquiao was 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I think to myself, apart from the comeback fight, which obviously, you know, for the reasons we just spoke about, apart from that, the only 2 people that beat me are 2 of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
So how can I argue? And I still think, you know, on the night, you know, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. You know, the referee, Joe Cortez, you know, I mean, I'm not going to make myself sound like an idiot by saying
this is the Mayweather fight, isn't it?
Yeah, the only reason Mayweather beat me was because of the referee. That's not the case. He's Floyd Mayweather. But sometimes the greatest can all get beat. Jake LaMotta beat Sugar Ray Robinson once, but he got beat 5 times. But I think sometimes on that night, I think I was throwing him out of his stride a little bit, you know, I was bullying him a little bit. And I think if the referee hadn't been doing what he was doing, I think I might have pushed him. I'll always take that to me grave. But I mean, at the end of the day, fighting Floyd Mayweather gave me, my family, my kids, a life I could have never dreamed of. You know, fighting Floyd Mayweather. You know, and to be honest with you, I feel blessed that I worked hard and I deserved my shot to get to fight Floyd. I was unbeaten, 2-weight world champion. But I'll always be forever grateful for what my family's got and everything, from that I was born in the same era as Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, good. And I have to say as well, it took a lot out of you, that fight. I mean, it was a real tough fight. And I think it's fair to say, Ricky, it took quite a lot out of you.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wasn't going to beat him on points. I knew on boxing ability. I knew I wasn't going to beat him on speed. What my game plan was, you know, if I get close enough, I've got to throw more punches because I'm not going to beat him in any other department. And I was very, very good at picking that spot for my punches. You know, the left hook to the body, or you know, my accuracy was probably one of my best qualities. And for me to fight somebody like was so good defensively, you know, I tell you what, he was on the ropes at times, and I could normally pick the spot perfectly.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, I don't think I could have hit him with an handful of confetti. You know, he was, you know, and he's, as much as I moan about the referee and this, that, and how hard done to I felt like I was, it was probably the first time, the only time in my career when I've gone back to the changing rooms after, you know, and you sat there and you know, you're reminiscing on the fight, and it's the only time I thought to myself, oh my God, how good was he? I was literally sat there and thought, wow, how good was he? A little bit hard, I felt a little bit hard done to, sulking a little bit, but, you know, I thought, wow. Yeah, and I just said to Billy Graham, he's going to be the best of all time. And he, you know, and that's what he's done.
He's been sensational. You've been terrific as well. And I have to say that what I really also loved about you, Ricky, besides your attacking style, no wonder you're called the Hitman, were the 10,000s or more English fans, British fans who followed you to Las Vegas. I mean, that must have been for you a sensational experience as well.
Well, people say, what was your best win? And I would say the Costa fight.
Yes.
And I thought the Mayweather and Pacquiao and Molinari and Castillo and everything like that. But when people say, what was your best achievement in boxing? I would have to say my fan base. Because, you know, I mean, I remember when Frank fought Mike Tyson in Las Vegas. He took 10,000 Brits over. And that was a record, 10,000 Brits. You know, I took 40,000 Brits over.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that I had more fans than the people I aspired to be, which, you know, I mean, you know, your Nigel Benns and your John Contes and your Frank Bruno, I no disrespect to all, I had a bigger fan base.
Yeah.
So how can that not be, all these legends I've just mentioned, how can that not be my greatest achievement? And it doesn't matter how many belts you've got in your trophy cabinet or how much money you've got in the bank, you know, when you retire, the belts are there and everything, but the love from the fans always remains, and it's still proud. I went to Manchester last night. I'm walking down the street, and they're singing "There's Only One Ricky Hatton."
Beautiful.
You know, and it's, you know, and I'd like to think, like you said, people supported me because obviously I was an exciting fight to watch, but I think people supported me because of I'm no different to the man in the crowd that supported me, and I think, you know, and that's the proudest thing I took into retirement.
Well, Ricky Hatton certainly captured the imagination of fight fans in this country. So too did CARL FROCH and George Groves with their 2 super fights for the world title. Coming up, we'll hear from George Groves. But first of all, CARL FROCH on that big fight at Wembley, which was watched by over 80,000 fans.
So I put everything, my heart and soul, into the rematch with Kessler. And when I got that win, and then subsequently found out that I'm actually fighting George Groves, one of my old sparring partners, that I didn't have enough respect for him, actually, which was unprofessional. I kind of couldn't be bothered, which sounds terrible, but I couldn't be bothered to jump in with a British fighter that's, in my opinion, British level, my opinion at the time, British level, was my sparring partner that I've dropped in sparring, and this ain't going to be a big fight. I want to go over to Vegas, I want to fight Chavez Jr. or, you know, some big name over there, and just hit the highlights and the headlines and then come home and retire on the back of a massive American or Las Vegas show, something I've never done. So the reason I retired, I'm going a long way around it, but hopefully people are listening and they're interested.
It is interesting. Carry on.
The reason I retired after the George Groves fight is because following on from the Kessler fight, when I'd kind of had enough and I put my heart and soul into it, I got the win. I nearly got chinned in round 11 as well. I got wobbled in round 11. When he hit me on the chin as I backed him up to the ropes. Then I trained for the Groves fight that was made as my first defence. So George Groves came after Kessler. And it was like, I don't really want to fight George Groves, Eddie Hearn. I don't really want to fight him. He's like, it's not a big fight. It's an easy win for me. And I'm not into easy wins. I don't want to disrespect anyone. But I was like, as soon as I hit him on the chin, it's going to be lights out, game over. And I've done all this training, and I'm not going to get any respect for it or praise or credit. Little did I know that George Groves actually got really fast hands. He could punch really hard. He was unbeaten, and he quite fancied the job. So I did a dance show with Rachel, my wife, who's now my wife. I did a dance show with her on ITV, and I was dancing every week, doing this stepping out. You can catch it on YouTube if you want to see me do the cha-cha-cha and the rombo and a few other moves I've got. And you know, I was training and dancing with Rachel when I should have been in training camp preparing for George Groves, and that went on for 6 or 7 weeks. Then I injured my back and pulled out the dance show, got my back sorted, and got straight into training camp. I had about 5 weeks in the training camp in Sheffield, preparing for George Groves, the first one, which took place at the MEN in Manchester. And we know what happened in that fight. I got beat up for 6 rounds. I was quite unfit. My timing was out. I've not done enough sparring. I didn't really fancy the job just because I had no real motivation. And in my head, I was going to get into the ring in Manchester against George Groves, hit him on the chin, knock him out sparker, and go home to my kids. That's what I thought, as stupid as that was. I mean, I'm a professional boxer who's been in the game for 10, 12 years, and I should know better, I know. But I didn't prepare for Groves properly. I didn't give him any respect, and I nearly paid the severe price. Well, I did pay the price, actually, because for 6 rounds, and the first fight with George Groves, I got an absolute beating. He hit me with everything, including the kitchen sink in that first fight. But after 6 rounds, actually, I was still stood there after the first round knockdown. I was still stood there, and I was recovering from the first round knockdown. I kind of felt that I was back in the room. And I looked over to him at the end of round 6, and he was absolutely exhausted. I'm being polite now because I don't know where this is going. But he was absolutely exhausted. And I thought to myself, I said to Rob, he's gone. He's absolutely, yeah, he's bleeped. You know, I've covered another word up there, but that's what I said to Rob. And he was like, I know he is, but just take your time, keep your composure, keep putting the pressure on him. And you know, I took the instructions off Rob. So even as badly as beat up as I got in the first 6 rounds, the first half of the fight against Groves, I knew the second half of the fight was mine because I'm super fit. I never cut corners, even though I did cut corners in the first fight because I was doing dancing. I've got a lot of built-in natural fitness from my career. Although I didn't do the full 12-week camp because I was doing a silly dance show, still naturally fit, naturally strong and tough, and I can take a punch. So George Groves was absolutely knackered in round 7. And I was just recovering from the first round knockdown and just getting my range back and just starting to get my sharpness back. And I felt good. So around 7, round 8, and then into when Howard Foster jumped in. And let's be honest, Howard Foster can be accused of stopping the fight a little bit too early. You know, a lot of people said, no, that shouldn't have been stopped. You watch loads of professional fights where you want the fight to go on. And you think, why has the ref stopped it? You know, it's not the first time it's happened, and it certainly won't be the last. I thought the stoppage, in hindsight, was a great stoppage. George Groves was concussed. He went to hospital. So it was a great stoppage, but it was controversial. It really was controversial. So after that fight, I went home with my nose double the size, my lip all split, a headache, jaw ache, earache, rib ache, my hands were hurting. And I thought to myself, that is it. I'm never fighting again. I kind of got away with that one by the skin of my teeth. And I thought, bloody hell, that was my see you later fight. I'm never fighting again. And this is the reason why, when I did eventually agree to fight Groves in the rematch, which kind of I had to do for my own credibility and my own sort of, after reading all the press that the fight was stopped too early and that Howard Foster made such a big mistake, which I disagree with, by the way. I thought Howard Foster made a fantastic decision. I have to emphasise that because he's a great referee and he came under a lot of fire and a lot of stick for stopping that fight. But I just thought, I've got to set the record straight. Even though I got the win and I beat Groves, I've still got to get back in there now and really beat him and beat him convincingly with no question marks or ifs or buts. It's got to be a conclusive win. So I spent 12 weeks up in Sheffield. I stayed in Sheffield. I didn't go home to see my kids. I didn't go home to see my wife. I slept up there in some little horrible digs. I got up in the morning every day with the kids up there. And I say the kids, the young men and women that get picked to box for England, go up to there, well, box for Great Britain actually, go up to Sheffield. So I was kind of running with the youth and the enthusiasm of all these young kids around a running track. I was in the gym every day with them. I was using the strength and conditioning coach that was there just kind of piggybacking on them being in the same room, saying, you know what, I'll jump in on that session. And, you know, I was up in the morning running, I was doing strength and conditioning once or twice a day. Then I was doing my sparring and my training session with Rob McCracken, my coach. And I just felt great. I was 12 stone 2 or 3 weeks before the fight. I was super fit, super strong. Don't get me wrong, my elbows were killing me. My ears were ringing. My back was sore. You know, I got an infection in my foot. I had problems. My eye was still sore, but I was getting through the training every day, saying to myself, this is the last time I'm going to do this. This is my last camp. This is my last sparring session with Tony Bellew trying to kill me. This is the last time I'm going to have Chris Eubank Jr. throwing clusters of punches, and I can't get rid of him because I'm wearing these big 18-ounce gloves and head guard. So I kind of enjoyed the camp with the gratification in my head that this is the last time I'm going to do it. So when I landed that right hand, clean and so perfect on George Groves' jaw at Wembley Stadium in front of 80,000 fans, rendering him unconscious and winning the rematch in such a magnitude, such a massive event in them kind of circumstances and that environment. All the build up to the Groves rematch, all the training camp that was hard, I got through it, and my mindset was, this is the last time I do it. So when I landed that right hand on Groves' chin and got the win by knockout, honestly, I mean, I didn't announce it instantly. I didn't announce it at the post-fight press conference, but I kind of knew deep down that that was curtains on my career. That's the end for me. And what a way to bow out on the crest of that wave. You know, that was for me. I can't think of anybody else who's gone out like that. And I look at my peers, people who I love, like Prince Nassim Hamid and Ricky Hatton and, you know, Tony Bellew was my friend, and David Hay as well. I mean, I look at them fighters and I think, you know, there's been a couple of bad knockouts there. You know, someone landed on the face a couple of times and went out on their back. And, you know, all them fighters, I don't know how that would sit with me mentally. When I put my head on the pillow at night, I got flattened in my last fight and, you know, it didn't go well for me. All right, I earned a few more quid, but it's money I'm probably never going to spend. And now my legacy's got a little bit of a tarnish on it. I mean, even Mike Tyson's legacy's been tarnished at the end, but Mike Tyson will always be Mike Tyson. He'll always be the baddest man on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. But I bowed out with world titles around my waist, with a win, such a big event at Wembley. And to be honest, I look back with absolutely no regret at all, and I'm really happy and satisfied with that decision. The only caveat to that is I was potentially going to fight Chavez Jr. in Vegas, following on from the Wembley fight. I had a couple of conversations with Eddie Hearn. I spoke to my coach, Rob McCracken. I even went back in camp for a couple of weeks. I was training at my local amateur boxing club, Phoenix. I went up to Sheffield for a couple of days, but I wasn't feeling it. When I say the desire is gone, totally gone, you know yourself. And I say to any rising amateur, any professional that's currently fighting that thinks there's no life after boxing, I can't ever see myself retiring, when do I decide to hang the gloves up? Trust me, you'll know when the time's right, because when that desire's gone, you've got to be honest with yourself and say to yourself, that's it now. Because boxing isn't the kind of sport where you can continue if your heart's not in it. It's not football, you don't lose 5-0. It's not tennis, you don't lose 3 sets to love. It's boxing, you go hospital, you know. And you know, we've seen it before. Boxers get put in bad states, and sometimes they don't wake up, or sometimes they wake up and they're severely injured, like, you know, brain damage. And we've seen it. I'm not saying anything that's not. And I don't like to put boxing in the category of a really dangerous sport. I certainly wouldn't ever want boxing to ever be banned. No, I think it's the best sport in the world. But you have to give it respect. You have to do your weight right. You have to not dehydrate your body, and you have to know when your time is up. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like when I see old fighters coming back out of retirement. But anyhow, I think I've answered your question on why I retired at Wembley. I've got no regrets, and I wake up with a smile on my face every day when I look at that picture of Grovesy boy getting flattened. And I like George Groves now. Me and him get on. We're friends. I spoke to him a couple of days ago, actually, about a podcast he's doing about ring walk musics and tunes. So me and him are okay.
Now, your own career, you were in some real high-profile fights, and you were determined to get the world title, which you got in the end. I'm just wondering, there were 80,000 people at your second fight at Wembley with CARL FROCH. That was the highest live gate at the time since World War II for a boxing match. Do you miss that?
No. I mean, it would. I'd love to say I missed it, but it was. a once in a lifetime thing, once in a generation thing. You know, a lot went into making that event, and it was my life's work up until that point. You know, and you need certain circumstances to create the big fights. Obviously, you need a dance partner, as they say in boxing. You need someone to have those heated exchanges to capture the public's imagination, which I had with CARL FROCH, who's by then sort of the A-side and established world champion, and it was up to me then to just set the stage to build it. But yeah, they're big nights. But strangely enough, I don't know why, but I don't miss boxing at all. You know, I think plenty of heartaches that I had over the years, and plenty of tough times, and plenty of tough decisions, and your priorities change, you know, as you get older. And right now, as much as I loved boxing, it's, you know, I don't miss it, which I think is a blessing. You know, I don't want to be Mike Tyson in my 50s and thinking about getting punched in the face again.
Yeah, very sensible. You were unbeaten going into the first CARL FROCH fight, and you were leading on points. There's always been a controversy about that. The referee stopping the fight too early, Howard Foster. The problem is, well, I'd like to know whether you thought that, but the problem is that referees can't win, really. If they let a fight go on too long and the guy's badly hurt, they're in trouble. If they stop it too early, in other people's eyes, it's a tough decision. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. It's not necessarily an easy decision for a referee. Well, it's not an easy job for a referee, but and Howard Foster has been notorious. He's the sort of referee who does jump in a tad early. You know, he shows compassion towards fighters in that respect. But when you look at that fight, my fight with Froch in particular, I dropped CARL FROCH heavily in the first round. Sure, it's the first round. He's the champion. He had the right to get up and survive the round, which he did. And then I punched him numb for the next 7-8 rounds.
Yeah.
And Howard Foster just stood by and did nothing. So there was no compassion or no excessive compassion from Howard Foster in that regard. But the second that CARL FROCH lets his hands go, he doesn't even really catch me with anything. Howard Foster panics and jumps in. And our argument at the time was that he's just bought into the hype, that everyone was saying that, you know, I would gas out, I would get tired, I'd have stamina issues, and as soon as CARL FROCH would get me late, it'd catch me with a shot in the later rounds and it'd knock me out. And it was if you watch the fight, and there and then, it's just bizarre how, I mean, it was all bizarre. I mean, the fact we got the judges' scorecards at the point of when the stoppage was, and I was only 1 point ahead when I hadn't lost the round. So again, you're like, the judges at ringside, are they being bought into the hype of the big fight, that this was a mismatch like everyone was saying, that I was out of my depth and that I was going to get knocked out? Because if you take the knockdown away, they're saying that was a 50-50 fight. And, you know, that was something that, of course, boxing's a subjective sport. It's not first past the post. You know, you're always going to have instances where people are going to have a difference of opinion. But in that fight, I think the outrage was just that it was so clearly one-sided. And people were so shocked that it was that case. That was what I said it was going to be, and that's what it was. Yeah. That the fact that the judges' scorecards come out, they've pretty much got it level, and Hal Foster jumps in and stops the fight in favour of the champion Froch, who was the A side of the card, the first time he lands something. So, it's boxing. It's boxing.
Yeah, Bianco, one of the judges, had you winning by a round. Roldan, another judge, had you winning by 1 round. You're absolutely right. And Dave Parris, the English judge, had you winning by 5 rounds. It's always a bit worrying.
Apologies to Dave Parris there. I must have thrown him under the bus. He's given it to me by 5 rounds, which even to me, when I watch it back, I think, hey, he's sat on the fence a bit there and been fair to Froch.
Now, in the second fight, when you did get knocked out with an technical knockout, an incredible punch. In fairness to you, from Froch, it was a fantastic punch, wasn't it? In the 9th round.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, the biggest stage. You know, there was so much energy spent on the build up. You know, at this stage in my career, I'm without a manager. You know, I had to navigate my own path. You know, after coming unstuck in the first fight where I felt there was an injustice and almost it felt like there was an agenda against me. Is it the British Boxing Board of Control against me? Is it the promoter? Is it the television network? Is it this? Is it that? So we wanted to make the rematch huge, such a huge event that it would dilute and make the first loss insignificant because of the magnitude of the rematch. So probably the one thing that I probably should have spent a touch more time on was what was going to happen on fight night, and we planned to not start gun ho. You know, we was going to build into the fight and then put the foot on the accelerator late. And first half of the fight is just almost like a bit of sparring, just trying to nick rounds almost. And then as soon as we put our foot on the gas, then but I'm already in a slightly casual frame of mind, and I leave my chin open. Froch steps into range. We know he steps to his left and he throws a big, the jab sets up a big right hand, and he couldn't have thrown it any better. Fantastic shot, and for the first time in my career, it's like, it's not about who wants it most. It's about at the highest level, you make a mistake and that's it. It's over. You have to stay switched on your game every second. So that was a tough pill to swallow. I felt like my career was actually going to begin at this point. I win this, and then every door's going to open for me. I'm going to be, the highest profile fighter in the UK at the time. We had Anthony Joshua on the undercard. We had the heavyweight scene hadn't really taken off. It was super middleweights where it was at. I had a mandatory coming through for the belts, which would have been James DeGale, so that would have been another huge high profile fight. So it was tough. It was really, really tough to be from hero to zero, literally in the space of one punch.
Well, that's it for this special edition of the Gary Newbond Sports Show. The best bits from some of our big interviews. All of it, of course, on the Mail Online. And you can see all 22 previous shows, the Gary Newbond Sports Show, in their entirety if you click on to the link on the comments section of this programme. Thanks for watching.